There are two questions that define the 2021 season for the Chicago Bears: sink or swim, and just how expensive is this going to get? You can't dispute that the Bears added a building block piece to their franchise in Justin Fields in the 2021 draft. But this is a fickle prospect. And this puts the Bears in an uncomfortable but familiar spot, because you've heard all the positives, but here's some of the negatives. Justin Fields has the panic moments that you see in Josh Allen. Justin Fields has the check down and outlet avoidance issues of Carson Wentz. Justin Fields has the interior vision issues of Tyrod Taylor. And those are legitimate concerns, but there is a reason why Justin Fields was our third-rated quarterback on the board ahead of Trevor Lawrence. And that's that if you scheme him properly, you can alleviate a lot of those concerns. But that's precisely what makes this an uncomfortable and familiar situation for the Chicago Bears. Because once again, Chicago has added a quarterback that, depending on how you scheme him, you can make him and you can break him. Which means the 2021 season for the Chicago Bears falls squarely on the shoulders of Matt Nagy. Now, as we go through this video, there won't be video clips in it, but as an added bonus to this video, down in the comments section, we will have links to videos for the first 10 games of the Chicago Bears 2020 season. Under it will be timestamps and specific plays that need to be maximized to get the best out of Fields and removed from the playbook to avoid the worst of Fields. I have to take a moment to thank everybody who's jumped on board with us in the prior month. Our faction has grown significantly in that time, and we thank you very much. And also, I want to point out, we are releasing this on Mother's Day. So if you haven't already shown your mother how much you love and appreciate her, just go there, hit the subscribe button, and we'll be here when you get done with that. Now, as a Packers fan, I love Matt Nagy. My team is 5-1 versus him, and the only time that we lost was when the team was quitting on Mike McCarthy. But as a football fan, I can't stand the guy. His offense has been bottom 4 in the league in 2019, and until he handed the keys over to Bill Lazor in 2020, was bottom 4 again. And this is a story we've been all over. We expected Trubisky to take off once Bill Lazor's offense actually started getting run, and that happened. We started buying playoff stock in the Chicago Bears when we saw Lazor starting to get control in the Detroit 2 game. And after his job was saved, we expected Nagy to take back control. And when they signed Dalton, we said that he was going to take back control, and then he did. If Matt Nagy's anything, he's predictable. And what has to concern Chicago Bears fans is that in the 2020 season, when Matt Nagy had his hands firmly on the wheel of the offense from week 1 to week 10, the Chicago Bears were in the bottom 4 of scoring offense in the entire league. And when it got handed to Bill Lazor, they were in the top 4 of scoring offense in the entire league. It was roughly an 11-point difference, and while people will point to strength of schedule and sample size, that's a gigantic difference. You have to attribute some of that to the scheme that Lazor brought in versus what Nagy was playing. And there were also reports that Trubisky wanted certain things in the offense changed, and Nagy refused to change them. And a number of people in the industry, including me, said that when the changeover to Lazor happened, that it was great to see that Trubisky was finally being used right. It means Nagy was so stubborn in his ways that he refused to do what was right by his quarterback. So if you think this Tiger is going to change his stripes, you got another thing coming. Nagy isn't going to change his offense. So guess what? Sink or swim. Can Justin Fields run the offense that Nagy has in his playbook? When you look at Nagy's offense, you see a number of common themes. You see a lot of meshes across the middle, mesh drags across the middle. You see hitches on the inside and the outside. You see tight end arrows. You see clear outs for a running back circle. It's very redundant. And oftentimes, when Nagy tries to spice it up, you'll see poorly spaced, 1v1, beat your man in the matchup situations on the field. And this is something that makes me puke, like watching Mike McCarthy's offense and watching Adam Gase's offense. And while there are players on the Chicago Bears, Mooney, Robinson, who can make this work, it's still the hardest way to get open. It doesn't do anything for your wide receivers to help them get open and gain separation with the scheme. And it's old school football, and it's not good. In fact, when I was watching the Chicago Bears season last night, The first 4 games that I went through, I found 5 plays that were efficient and Fields would like to run. 5 in 4 games. And granted, that does not count speed outs after a clear out run or arrows to a tight end, because those are routes that bury your wide receiver into the boundary, gain you 5 yards, and it's rhythm timing, dink and dunk, non-efficient offense. It's something that can't lead to yak. It's something that can't lead to an explosive play. And the question you have to ask at this point is, how does that pair with Justin Fields? Well, the hitches on the boundary are good. The speed out, clear outs on the boundary, those are all good. But what you fail to see the Chicago Bears offense doing regularly is creating space down the field. The separation that you see on the vertical routes, most of the time when the Bears quarterbacks are letting it go, they're letting it go well before separation. This is NFL open, this is an anticipatory throw, and this is something you did not see Fields do at Ohio State. You also see those interior hitches, which Fields does not see as separation open, and drags and the meshes underneath that Fields does not like to target until they get to the numbers on the opposite side of the field. This makes for this play to be a very long developing play, which means Fields is going to have to hold the ball and put stress on that offensive line. To say it more directly, if Nagy holds the percentages he has in his playbook on these plays, Justin Fields will be running for his life. And while he can do that, that is no way to run an offense. That is no way to hit your efficiency benchmarks. And everything that's attacking the middle of the field with Justin Fields will actually grade at a lower efficiency level than you saw with Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky last year. The interior work in Nagy's offense will bring out the worst of Justin Fields. You will see the Josh Allen panic moments when the line breaks down. You will see him waiting on plays to cross across the field so that he can get a good vision viewpoint on it. And on the late developing drags and mesh, you will see the Carson Wentz avoidance of checkdowns and on outlet routes. Justin will call his own number in these scenarios and try and do it himself. Even when Chicago is running their sprint out levels concepts, you won't have the grace distance that you see in the college ranks. You can run it at Ohio State to the far boundary and it gets you extra spacing. In the NFL, you see that the routes that they run do not have the same spacing, and this is going to force Fields to throw into college or NFL open situations, something he is not comfortable doing at this point in time. And this sounds pretty bleak. At this point, this sounds very bleak. There's a lot of this offense that runs through the region that Fields does not want to attack. The ability to attack down the field is something that Chicago isn't generating, which is one of the places Fields wants to be. And the only stuff you see on the boundary that really hits where Fields wants to work is 5-yard checkdowns into the sideline. That's not going to work. But there are positives. There are things in the Nagy playbook that fit Fields and what he can do best. The problem is that the tendencies are completely backwards on this right now. Nagy will have to amplify what he does that fits Justin Fields and take a chisel to his playbook and take out sections that do not fit Justin Fields. But the good news of this is that there are plays in the playbook that suit Fields. They just need to be run at a much higher level in frequency. To use Fields properly, you need to make sure he is on the boundaries and he is deep. You need to stretch out the windows in the intermediate part of the field so that he can have his vision not be a liability. You need to scheme immediate release routes to the backs, to the tight ends, where a clear out clears a region and the quick hitter replaces it. This is to speed up the clock. This is to make sure that the offensive line doesn't have to hold their blocking every single play. And if you look at the first 10 games that Nagy was in control of this offense in the 2020 season, the game that stands out specifically is the Tampa Bay game. That was the closest to a Fields game plan that Chicago ran the entire first 10 weeks. That game. In that game, you saw the clear out speed outs. You saw the RPO hitches on the boundary. You saw the arrows and the wide receiver or the running back releases into the flat and the post that came in from the boundary behind it into the window that they had ripped open. You even saw 5 wide with a stack look on the trip side that had the defense tilting away from Allen Robinson, who got his 1v1 matchup in the slot on the other side of the play. A play action and go to that RPO on the inside with a widened window. This is something they did with Wilson at Ohio State. So the good news for Bears fans is that the addition of Dramere Bird, addition of speed on the field, and 30% of Nagy's playbook does suit what Justin Fields wants to do. But that 30% of pass plays needs to be much closer to 80-90% of pass plays. And if Nagy doesn't alter those tendencies to fit his quarterback and start running the plays that his quarterback wants to see, Nagy is going to kill this offense and get himself fired. Justin Fields will look bad if Nagy doesn't tilt his offense towards him. Remember, this is our third-rated quarterback in this class. We see the issues. We see the positives. We know how to use the positives. Will Nagy is the question. And if Nagy doesn't do it, the cost of this trade-up could get extremely high. Because Nagy's offense has been bottom 4 in this league 2 years running, and it's not going to get any better with Justin Fields if he runs the same offense. There will be parts of his offense that run a little bit cleaner. There will be interior parts of his offense that run worse. Much like Trib was going to fail unless he got Lazor, Fields is in position to fail if Nagy doesn't start running those right plays. What are those right plays? We will have them listed in the comment section below. We will have them linked to film with timestamps so you can see what Nagy should be calling on high volume. And if he doesn't find that, and we have, you know you have a problem, and you know the only answer to that is to fire the coach. Because with the Chicago Bears, the 2021 season comes down to 2 questions. Will Nagy sink or swim? And how expensive is that trade for Justin Fields going to get? I love you guys. We need you. Stay strong, and I'll see you on the other side.